by day, swingers by night. All new Phil.
Please welcome Billy Bob Thornton.
While she slept.
You're paralyzed. You may never walk again.
Now, meet the man responsible. A mother's worst nightmare. Laurel had no idea her daughter had fallen into the washing machine.
I thought what I saw was a doll.
Plus, just when Shauna finally achieved her dream, the unthinkable.
An 18-wheeler fell on top of the car I was riding in.
That's what's coming up right now on Montel. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. You know, our guests today were not prepared for their lives to be forever changed in just one split second. My first guest was asleep in her apartment when the unthinkable happened. Take a look at this.
Kyle and I, we'd been together for about 2.5 years. It was July 8th of 2000. We woke up about the same time, about 20 minutes to 4. He just, asked if I was okay, and I told him that something was wrong, and he was rubbing my back and told me that it felt really sweaty, and I told him that he needed to turn on the light. What he thought was sweat was actually blood.
That kind of sent me into a bit of a panic. Got down next to Tara, saw the hole in her arm.
Put a shirt against where the bullet actually entered my arm, just to kind of stop the bleeding.
I then called 911 and waited for the ambulance to show up.
Once in the hospital, Tara discovered a random bullet had penetrated her bedroom wall. She had been accidentally shot by a neighbor.
I just couldn't understand why, somebody would be on the other side of the wall after drinking. Even if he, the gun, why he was cleaning the gun at that early in the morning. When I first found out that I was paralyzed, I was really emotional. I got angry a lot when I was in rehab, just trying to learn how to live my life again, how to, eat, how to get dressed. Just the fact of, when you think that somebody's paralyzed, you think that they just can't walk, and that's probably the least of everyone's problem who is in a wheelchair. I mean, people take for granted every day, because I was very, very independent before. I was always on the go. I'm still always on the go, but it just takes me a lot longer now. I'm not able to be as affectionate, I think, I was before with Kyle, as far as being able. But I do miss a lot of being able to just walk next to Kyle, hold his hand, be able to come home if he's sitting on the couch and be able to sit next to him. It's hard if we go to the mall and he's next to me and you see all these young girls looking at him like he's my caregiver or something like that, and that's really hard. So I miss the confidence, and I miss being able to just be a normal wife. There's a lot I miss.
Please welcome Tara to the show. You see that? You see that, and you hear yourself, but you come a long way. You've come an incredibly long way. Have you not? Let's stay with this for a second, because you talk about what you miss, but how much have you gained now? Just understanding who you are.
I've gained so much. I mean, just knowing myself more as a person now, and my family, we've gotten a lot closer. I think Kyle and my relationship's actually gotten a lot stronger through all of it, too.
Let's back up. The two of you are laying at home in bed, right?
Right.
Sleep. What did you do the night before?
I worked. I got home at 1:30 that morning.
1:30. Where did you work at?
I worked at the Hot Rod Cafe.
Okay. So you're working at the cafe, you get home late. Kyle was already there.
Kyle was there waiting for me, and we just we went upstairs. We were ready for bed. I had to get up early that next morning, too, and we went right to sleep, and about 20 minutes to 4, we both woke up.
Let's talk about that for a second. You wake up because you heard a noise, or you just woke up, or you don't know?
I don't know why we woke up. Our dog was barking, so that might have, had something to do with it, but I just knew instantly that something was wrong.
And the first thing you sense when you wake up is what?
It was a lot of tingling.
Where?
And just kind of in my whole body. Like it felt like my whole body just kind of had a tingle go from my chest all the way down to my toes.
You said something to Kyle? What did Kyle say?
Kyle I told him that something was wrong, and he was just rubbing my back and said that I was really sweaty. And so I told him that he needed to turn on the light. And when he did, he realized that it was blood. And I don't know, he was, you know, kind of worried too. He thought, you know, he looked for a little bit and saw that I had just been shot in the arm. And he called 911, and when he was on...
But wait a minute. He looked for a little bit and saw that I was shot in the arm. You're looking around, shot from where? The windows are still in the apartment, correct?
Right.
The doors are still there. You run out, nobody walked in the front door.
Right.
Nobody walked out the front door. Did you even see where a bullet came from?
No, he saw, like, drywall dust. There was, you know, blood, and then there was drywall dust. So when he went over and put the shirt over, he saw that there was the hole
In the
the
wall.
wall, just right next to our dresser. It just barely missed our dresser.
Okay, so now 911 comes. At this point in time, or you think, did you make attempts at moving in the apartment? No, you're just laying in the bed.
I never even thought about it. It never crossed my mind. When he was on phone with the 911 operator, I grabbed my legs, and I told him I couldn't feel him, and he said, well, they're probably just asleep. We had no idea.
Get to the hospital, find out that bullet had entered and done what?
It
Talk about
had broken 3 ribs, collapsed my lung, and then entered, or just kind of touched on my spinal cord.
Immediately, I hear the doctors are trying to stabilize you in the hospital. They walk into you, Tara, and say, we don't think you're ever going to walk again.
It was hard. It was 2 weeks before I actually realized what was going on, and it was just a really hard thing to, when you go from being completely independent and then learning that you're paralyzed, you may never walk again.
Completely independent, paralyzed. I'm engaged to a guy.
Just 2 weeks prior, we got engaged.
Just 2 weeks prior, I get engaged to my dream guy. I got a job. What am I going to do? How did you even take that information when it came to you that second?
I don't know how I took it.
I'm going to take a break. When we come back, you're going to tell me how you took it. Figure it out. We'll take a break. We'll be back right after this.
I picked up her arm and didn't see an exit wound. Thought, okay, it's in her arm. It's not a big deal. And now here's this doctor telling me that she may never walk again from a gunshot wound to the arm.
And I was... Does your teen have a gambling habit that you think is getting out of control? If so, call us at 1-800-MONTEL-2. That's 1-800-MONTEL-2.
We're talking today to people whose lives were changed in a split second. And Tara was laying in bed in her apartment and is shot, unbeknownst to her, by a neighbor in an apartment next door who was really just cleaning a gun. You didn't even find that out until when?
Probably about 2 weeks later, because
2
I
weeks
was
later.
in and out of surgery and everything like that.
They had to stabilize you. I mean, and the prognosis has been what?
Well, they say that since it's an incomplete injury, I have an 80% chance. They don't say full recovery, but I have gained a lot of sensation back and...
In your legs?
Throughout my whole body.
Let's back up here for a second. Okay, so this happens. You're in the hospital. How long were you in the hospital initially after the surgery? 2 weeks, and then what?
I was there for a month and then rehab for a month.
The rehab. You got to tell me. I know it was flashing through your mind. Kyle's going to come in here any second and say, "Love you, kid." You know what I mean? Whatever I can do for you, let me know. Right?
Right.
Were you thinking that?
I didn't think that at first. I mean, we had a doctor come in and actually say, "Do you think Kyle will leave you?" And we were 20 years old, and I said, "The thought never crossed my mind." You know, I don't know. And it really, really got the wheels turned into my head, thinking that, yeah, I might be doing this on my own.
And how did Kyle make you feel about that?
He's the most incredible person. He's pushed me in ways that just to kind of keep me positive and everything like that. And
I don't know of couples your age I don't think I've had one on this show that could survive what you've been through. Honestly, maybe older couples, yeah. You know, Tara and Kyle got married 2 years after this accident took place. And Tara was determined to make her wedding day perfect. Take a look at this.
my wedding day was the happiest day of my life. After all Kyle and I had been through together, I wanted our wedding to be our special day. Ever since I was a little girl, I wanted that perfect fairy tale wedding, but after the accident, I wasn't sure that dream would come true. It was all I ever dreamed of and more. Since my accident, I worked out long and hard for 9 months so that I would be able to walk down that aisle. The secret was my leg braces that went from my feet all the way up to my hips. That walk down the aisle felt like the longest walk in history, but I made it, and it was so worth it just to see the look in Kyle's eyes.
Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Mr. and Mrs. Kyle Miller.
But my favorite moments were when Kyle would literally whisk me off my feet at various points during the wedding. I felt like the bride I had always planned to be.
Please welcome Tara's husband, Kyle, to the show. Dude, let's go back. First off, much respect to you, because I don't know how many people in your age would hang. And that's a testament to what the two of you had probably before this happened.
Yeah.
So now, saying that, what stopped you from going across to the next apartment and dragging somebody down and, you know, throwing them in front of a car?
Well, I really didn't know what had happened. You know, I was as unaware as Tara was. So at that time, it was more important to me to take care of her, you know, make sure she was okay before I even thought of going and doing anything else.
And find out what happened. And so it took you 2 weeks to even find out what happened.
Well, it took her 2 weeks.
Okay.
You know, we were informed that morning in the emergency room what had happened, and they had given us kind of a prognosis. You know, there's a definite chance that she may never walk again. And that's kind of a big slap in the face. You know, it's, especially for me, I saw where the bullet entered. You know, I picked up her arm and didn't see an exit wound. Thought, okay, it's in her arm. It's not a big deal. And now here's this doctor telling me that she may never walk again from a gunshot wound to the arm.
Right. But now we still have to deal with the issue of the fact that the woman you love has been shot. Yeah. And what's going to be done about it, correct?
Right.
So talk to me a little bit about that, because you finally found out who the perpetrator was, right? Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about this.
They tried to charge him with whatever they could because they wanted something to stick with this guy for doing this to her. And I have to say, yeah, I was angry. You know, I was angry at him. I was angry at a lot of things. You know, why'd this have to happen? Here we were asleep in the bed, you know, the safest spot you could be, you think, and you end up with a gunshot wound, and I was angry.
But all the charges and all those things, eventually, I guess it was a joint decision, but you dropped them, correct? Now why?
We were in and out of court for, gosh, about 3 years, and it was just, you know, it was a struggle. And every time I was in the courtroom, I saw Chaton, and I knew he was sorry for what he did. And for me, I didn't want to live with hate in my heart forever. I knew that if I forgave him and the charges were dropped and everything, that my life would just be so much better. And, you know, I wouldn't have the stress hanging over my head or anything like that, having to keep going to court and everything like that. So it was really important to me to do that.
And I guess, so the stress comes out of your life, and how are you doing right this minute?
I'm 4 months pregnant.
There you go. And I always say that because, you know, it's like this, that's a miracle in a story that seems to be just filled with miracles. I don't think they're done yet. And that may have something to do with just that leap of faith you took at making your life better by getting rid of the stress.
Right.
When we come back, we're going to meet the man who accidentally shot Tara. And we'll be here. Take a break. We'll be back right after this.
I went out with some friends, and we had some drinks, and I decided to clean my gun that night. We went and my gun went off. We ended up leaving our house to come back the next morning and find cops at my house. And they arrested me and proceeded to bring me down to the station. Later, they told me that I shot somebody in the apartment next door. I was devastated. They told me that she was probably going to die.
So the truck fell on top of her. She was impaled. The metal from that truck ripped your chest completely open. accidentally shot Tara, I want you to take a look at this.
My name is Shatana. So the night of July 8th, year 2000, I went out with some friends, and we had some drinks, and I decided to clean my gun that night. We went and my gun went off. We ended up leaving our house to come back the next morning and find cops at my house, and they arrested me and proceeded to bring me down to the station. Later, they told me that I shot somebody in the apartment next door. I was devastated. They told me that she was probably going to die. From there, I went to jail. So I was bailed out. I moved back into my mom's. For the next months, I was in seclusion. I lost about 25 pounds in about 2 or 3 weeks. The media portrayed me as a monster. Firing of the weapon was a total accident. Well, then after that, for the next 4 years, I was in and out of court, battling different charges. I had a no-contact order, so I couldn't talk to Tara, but pretty much couldn't even really look at her and what I had done. We were probably in court probably 8 or 9 different times. I pleaded guilty to was an obstruction of justice. For that charge, I served 6 months. Every time I see her to this day, I still wish that it was me in there and not her. I'd do anything to be able to take that back or to find a way for her to walk. I live with a guilt every day. That's very little compared to what she has to live with every day.
Please welcome Shatana to the show. This is not a scenario that we created on the show. The three of you have sat together, talked together. You spent time together on occasion, correct?
Correct.
And I'm not asking it why for the hard reason. I'm asking rhetorically, why? This happened. I would assume you've accepted the apology.
Oh,
So
yeah.
why now spend this time together?
It's healing. You know, if I have a problem during the day, you know, I can call him and not have to worry about yelling at Kyle for something that, you know, was caused to my body from something that Shatana did, you know, and it's helped me heal more than I can even, you know, tell you.
And how about for you? I mean,
Yeah, my healing process has gained so much. I mean, I live with it every day, and just being able to see her and hear about what she's had to go through because of me, I mean, it helps me. I mean, 'cause I fully want to understand everything that she has to go through. And
you've been supportive to the point of just in everything. I mean, coming over, helping to run errands and those kinds of things. Is this something that you guys will continue for a while, or?
I would hope so. I'd hope it even get greater. I mean, our lives are both pretty busy right now, and I would hope in the future I could even...
Just so everybody understands, what happened that night? What was going on that night? Were you playing with this gun?
No.
What did you do?
I came home, and I should have not been cleaning it. I mean, I was drunk. I made an ill decision, decided to clean it.
Okay, so then you took it out. What did you know? You cleaned it?
I cleaned it, and I was up actually talking to both of my roommates. We're all getting ready to go to bed.
When you cleaned it, you just cleaned the barrel?
Cleaned the barrel, I cleaned it out, and I actually put it back together, and I was showing them where it was gunked up earlier in the day because it was sticking.
There still was a bullet in the chamber.
I reloaded it, and then I thought I took all of them out, but there was one bullet left in there.
And then you went to place it down? Or
No, I had it in my hand. I went to release the chamber, and I don't know if it slipped. It happened in such a fast second, and it was just in my hand, and it went off. And I didn't know if it went this way, up, wherever. It was just kind of a shock.
So you never even noticed that it went through the wall?
No. The hole on my side of the wall was very, very little.
And you barely caught. When did you actually see the hole in the wall? Before the EMS guys got there?
No, after I turned on the light, you know, I saw the drywall dust all over the bed and realized that it wasn't sweat that I was feeling, it was actually blood. I jumped over the bed to Tara's side of the bed, and as I did that, I noticed it there.
I will say that there are probably people sitting here at home watching this show and saying, you would never catch me right there sitting with the person who did this. And so I would say, you know, the fact that you have stepped out the way you have and forgiven, it may be part of the reason why the miracles are coming your way, like this baby. And, you know, I said it to them on a break. I don't know why, but I will guarantee that by the time I stop doing the show, you're going to walk through that door back there, and I'm going to have you come out here when you do it. Thank you. Let me take a little break and come back. You know, in 1 second, your life can be changed. A mother, she's doing the laundry in her house, got several kids in that house, turns her back to go to the bathroom for a minute, and the unthinkable happens. Take a break, we'll be back right after this. This was home with her 11 children doing laundry when the unimaginable happened. Take a look at this.
My name is Laurel. I'm a mother of 11 children.
On the day that I was home, I was doing my laundry. My sister had sent me a box of clothing for my daughter. I just remember throwing some item to the washing machine. I went to the restroom. You know, I had heard the washing machine running. When I came out of the restroom, I had noticed that the lid was up. I thought there was a doll in the washing machine. My daughter's hand was up. She was like in a standing position. And I realized it was my child. My heart just sank. And I felt sick to my stomach, and I just immediately grabbed her out, and I became hysterical. You know, I don't remember a lot of the things. Got to the ER, and they had to stabilize her. She was hooked up to a ventilator. Her little heart just started slowing down, and 22 hours later, she just, it's like she just fell into a deep sleep and stopped. Her heart stopped. And we made the decision to let her pass, and we donated her organs. And it was the hardest thing to do, to love your child so much, to not want them to suffer, to have to let go.
Please welcome Laurel to the show. I will say that this day, when you walked away from that washing machine, you walked away from that washing machine to go to the bathroom, correct?
Mm-hmm.
A minute and 20 seconds.
What happened was I went from our living room through the kitchen, and our washing machine's there, to the restroom. And as I passed, what we think happened was my 2-year-old daughter, Amber, had followed behind me. And then I did not know she was behind me. I went into the restroom. Later on, we found out my daughter, my 4-year-old, had watched her push the box of clothing up to the washing machine that my sister had sent for my other girls. Mm-hmm. And she had climbed up and she had opened the washing machine and had, I guess, started trying to be a little helper putting clothes in, or softener sheets in the washing machine, and had slipped in. The washing machine was actually running, and my 4-year-old was holding her hand, and when she couldn't hold her hand any longer, she went to get my husband, who was in the living room. And at that point, I had came out from the restroom, and
you find her there, she wasn't breathing.
She was submerged in the washing machine. Her little hand was raised up, like in this position. I'm sorry. And when I looked into the washing machine, I was horrified. I just looked in and I thought what I saw was a doll. And I was just so in shock. And I looked again, and her eyes were open. Her little lips were blue, and she was just covered in the soapy water. And see, the washing machine had not been filled to a full load. It was just a partial load. And I pulled her out, and I just remembered seeing her eyes open, and I knew she was not there. She wasn't conscious. And I just became hysterical.
And unbeknownst to you, you broke your wrist pulling your daughter out of that washing machine, did you not?
Yeah, I broke my wrist here and in here. I had a compressed fracture. My husband took her out onto the porch, and he laid her down, and her diaper was soaking wet. He started CPR on her. And they gave her the refibrillation to try to revive her because she had no heartbeat.
She passed, and I guess it would be traumatic enough for a family to lose a child this way. But then Family Services comes after you, correct?
Yes.
In what way?
Well, I was charged with neglectful supervision. I had to go under a investigation as far as child abuse.
But at the end of the day, they recognize the testimony of your 4-year-old.
Right.
Who had been there and watched this happen.
Right.
I can't say anything other than our prayers go out to you. I know that not in an attempt to replace, but you have had another baby since.
Right. 9 months to the day of my daughter's death, we had a little girl.
I don't know what to say other than I know you're working now as an advocate to make sure that, you know, there's some rules and some things applied to washing machines and things like that, correct?
Right. My one rule would be never leave your children alone. Not to go to the bathroom, not to answer the phone, not to answer the door. Never leave your children alone, because in an instant, your whole life could change. And you just may never have that chance to change things back. You know, when I look at things as far as I just went to the bathroom, I never expected my child to die.
I gotta take a break. When we come back, a beauty queen who had just been crowned Miss Florida has to fight for her life. Take a break. We'll be back right after this.
October 25th was such an important day for me because I was crowned Miss Florida 2003. In a split second, my life changed dramatically. I was in a terrible accident. An 18-wheeler tractor trailer flipped on top of the car I was riding in.
My next guest spent 5 years competing to become Miss Florida, and 2 weeks after the dream came true, her life changed in a split second. I want you to take a look at this.
My name is Shauna. October 25th was such an important day for me because I was crowned Miss Florida 2003. I majored in theater and studied in London as well, and I had really wanted to pursue an acting and singing career on Broadway. In a split second, my life changed dramatically. I was in a terrible accident. An 18-wheeler tractor trailer flipped on top of the car I was riding in. And the next thing I knew, I was airlifted, I was in rider trauma center, and I had no idea what had happened. I had a torn aorta, a torn arm, had a broken wrist. My chest was filleted like a fish, brain damage as well. I couldn't even remember what time it is sometimes or what day it is. So I had to take it upon myself and write every single thing down. I cannot shape my armpits by myself because I can't lift my arm that high. I'm speaking right now with a paralyzed vocal cord. When I was actually told that I couldn't speak, I was devastated. That had been my livelihood as an actress and a singer. It's really hard, particularly when I watch my earlier films of when I spoke and when I sang. And I really want to get back to that. My future is untold right now.
Please welcome Shauna to the show. And then, of course, I asked the question just now. It's kind of hard to see those tapes of yourself.
Yes.
Why? Well,
Because I know that I can't sing like that again. I'm sorry.
it's okay.
That's the worst part. The voice is the worst part because there's always hope, but regardless, it's paralyzed.
Let's talk about what you mean by that. Let's back up for a second. You had been, not a career out of it, but you've been in pageant after pageant.
I paid my way through college with it.
With pageants,
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
And very successful at it. Successful at it enough that bingo bango, there you are.
Yeah.
Being crowned Miss Florida.
I was so excited.
You must have been. Now, that night that this accident took place, you were headed to a Miss Florida event.
I was headed to an Operation Smile event as Miss Florida, and I never made it. From what I've read and what I've been told, an 18-wheeler tractor trailer fell on top of the car I was riding in.
There were 3 other passengers in that car.
Yes, there were.
Okay. It fell on you in such a way that it impaled you with metal through your chest.
Yes.
Talk for a second about the damages. You almost lost your arm.
Yes.
Your arm was ripped off.
Yes.
Had to be sewn back on, reattached. It tore your aorta.
Yes. That's when I actually died on the table during the tear when they were repairing it.
And the doctors had to actually physically massage your heart to keep you going.
Yes, and that's also actually when I think we also lost the voice because they had to move the vocal cord out of the way to get to the heart.
And when they move it out of the way, that freezes your vocal
Correct.
cord.
That's what we think. That's what we think.
Okay, now brain damage also?
There's brain damage. I had a brain infarct, and so that really messes up my short-term memory and my long-term memory. It's okay, but it's not as good as it once was. I mean, I didn't even know that I was Miss Florida in the hospital. I was like, I'm Miss Florida? Cool, you know, I was so excited. But they had to keep telling me that I was Miss Florida. And I was like, I am? So they had to actually bring the crown in to show me that I had won. But the brain damage is, I mean, it's something I'm living with, and it has really improved tremendously.
You were on the road, driving to an event, and the dream was one day I'll go to Broadway.
Exactly.
I'll be able to act, I'll be able to sing.
Exactly.
Okay, so singing dream may have been affected, but acting, you know, what's going on with the acting?
Well, the acting I'm still going to be pursuing as well because it's always been my dream, and I studied it in college, and I studied in London, so I was really, really into acting. It's always been a passion for me. And, you know, nothing's going to stop me. There's a whole world out there, so I'm going to pursue the acting as well as motivational speaking.
And we should say you had to relearn everything. To write, to walk,
to eat,
to speak, to focus.
Some of the other things I have lost is my confidence. I used to be so incredibly confident. It's coming back, but unfortunately they can't help me with that. That's something I have to do myself.
Sure, and you know, I don't know why, I know you'll do it. We'll take a break, we'll come back. We'll meet Shauna's sister, and you know, I think part of the show has been about how your life can change in a split second, but you already noticed how it changes entire families, everybody around. Something like this that's catastrophic for one person, the rest of your family will live with for the rest of your life.
That's correct.
And it's good that they stick by you. We'll take a break. We'll be back right after this. For free studio audience tickets, call us at 212-989-8101 or visit our website at montelshow.com. Sister Alana to the show. Welcome on. How did you find out about what happened to your sister? Let's start there.
I heard this message from my father.
And the message said what?
The message said, Alana, it's Dad. You need to call me right now. I knew with the sound of his voice and the tone he was carrying through that message that something's wrong. So my heart started beating extremely fast. And I picked up the phone and I called my dad's cell phone because he and my mother were on the way to the airport to get to Miami. And he told me then, he says, Alana, your sister's been in a car accident. And I dropped the phone and started screaming. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, not my sister, not my only sister. And he didn't even tell me what it was that had happened, because at that point we were not even aware as how severe it was, but I could feel it. It's weird. I could feel it in my bones. I knew something was really, really bad.
There were moments in the next week where doctors literally didn't think she was going to make it.
No.
Correct?
No, doctors, she's a walking miracle. She really is.
Just so you understand this, when I told you, I said the truck fell on top of her. She was impaled. The metal from that truck ripped your chest completely open. So this woman walked in, didn't look like a human being at one moment.
They didn't know if I was a boy or a girl.
Yeah, because they ripped her up. They had to grow, right? They had to actually grow skin to your chest.
Yes, that's correct.
Then you find out she recovers. But there's going to be impact on everybody. Now, you could have very easily, as the big sister, said, Mom, Dad, what you guys are going to do? But what's going on right now with the two of you?
Now, my mom went through the surgeries. She, you know, took her to therapy, did all the things that I couldn't do because I live here and had to work. So now that my mom got her to this point to where she can carry on her own to an extent, that's where I have to pick up. It's my turn. Some of the things that maybe Mom and Dad can't do.
So you say, I have to pick up, so you two are living together.
Yes, we live together.
So you moved your sister in to take care of her.
Moved her in.
And?
She moved in, and now what we do is we have to work on totally re-socializing again. You can hear her now, but if she's in a crowded room, because of the vocal cord, you can't hear her.
I tell people I have laryngitis.
You can't hear her. So imagine trying to converse, talk to people, even meet people, and constantly having to repeat yourself. And she is afraid to go in certain areas, anywhere where it's going to be loud, because people can't hear her.
And the memory drills, correct?
Yes, the memory. The memory is the biggest factor, I think, as well as the voice, because if I meet you, I have to remember your name. And I have to say it over and over and over so I can remember, hi, Montel. His name's Montel, you know? Otherwise, I'm like, what's his name?
Okay. But, I mean, at least this is another example of so often when things happen, especially catastrophic things, we try to rely on other people, and it just makes me feel good that we still have old-fashioned families that step up to the plate and say, let me take care of it. And my sister, that should be respected for that. I mean, let me take a little break. We'll be back right after this. Salsa to the show. Thanks, guys. For being here. You know, it's very interesting with a group of people whose lives have been so dramatically changed that even though they went through some changes, they're back to who they were in some ways. I mean, I would say it in the sense, looking right here, I mean, even though this has been as devastating as it has been, each person's on with. This is a mom who still has to be a mom to 10 kids. And Lorella's picked up the charge, and though she hurts, she's still back to being a mom. You know, I mean, Tara still is Tara. Yeah, she may be differently abled, but it's still Tara. And the same thing here with Shauna. So what kind of advice can you give them to make sure that when those dark moments come up, they stay this way?
Well, I think everybody here really embodies something that's wonderful, which is that when you suffer a horrible loss, as everybody has, you know, first you disbelieve, and then you're depressed, and then you grieve, and then what you do is you try to let go of the things that you've lost, and you try and meet the person that you've yet to become. So what I always say to people is that you, in many ways you're the same, but in some ways you're not. In some aspects of your life are over and need to be grieved and need to be mourned, but you get a second life. You get a second shot to be a different person. And what's that going to be about? Because undoubtedly there's going to be wonderful things in it. It's just a question of being able to embrace those things. All of you have really moved forward to say, okay, I've lost some things, but what can I do? And how can I make this life enriching?
There will come a time, no matter what, in every one of their lives, and like in ours, you know, we all stop for a second and start, oh, woe is me, oh, reflecting again. What's the best way to get out of that? You know, I'm not talking about this month, next year, 2 years from now. What do you do?
I think it happens. I'm sure it happens to all of you, and there are those moments when you really break down, and I think they need to be acknowledged. They need to be validated. And what I tell people is try and give yourself a time limit. Say, you know, okay, you've got an hour, bawl your eyes out, feel it, mourn it, and then try to figure out how to get yourself in a positive place again. And if you can't, then you've got to enlist the aid of your family, you've got to enlist the aid of a professional, and try and pull yourself out of it. But it happens. It's part of it.
Start being a little bit more vulnerable, too. All right, we'll take a break. We'll be back right after this. Everyone on the stage, from Laurel, Shauna, you know, Tara, they've done this. They are speaking about this. They're out there in the public, and they're letting people know what's happened. But let's, if you can, maybe for those people that are at home that have had things this catastrophic happen to them, and maybe they've just gotten to the point that they're no longer hiding in the closet. They're no longer hiding in the living room. How important is it to get out and share this with people like us? I'm telling you, you don't know how inspiring you guys have been, and inspirational you've been for me and for other people, just to know that you can get up and keep going. Kick them a little bit so they keep doing it. But how do we kick them a little bit, even the people at home right now who have lived through something like this, to make them do the same thing?
I think it's a process, and what we're seeing is the final stages of the successful process. Not everyone gets there, and that's why it's so important to see you guys as role models. But Shauna said something before the show which I thought was so powerful, and that was that I don't hide my scars. They're my battle wounds. I fought to survive. And I really feel that when you've survived a life-changing trauma, that it is a battle wound. It is something that makes you special. It changes your values into something very special. And we all know, you family members know, that it's a privilege to be around somebody who has changed their values like that and who knows what's important, who knows what really has weight in the world. So
it'll help teach a lot of other people that there's a lot more behind beauty than what we think we see. And I would say to you, I don't know, when you looked at that picture, I was hoping when we started the interview and you looked at yourself and you started crying, I'm glad that you said it was because of your voice.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with the way you looked, because scars and all, you were probably more beautiful now. I think you're more beautiful now than you were in those pictures.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And a lot of other people probably feel the same thing. I'm out of time. You know what? I can't but end the show with a smile, because you guys just make me feel like there's hope. And I know there's hope for all of you. I'm going to watch you walk out on this stage. It's happening before I stop doing the show. I ain't playing. I'm out of time. Join us on the next month.